Hi, this is Rob Connery, and welcome to Mercurial for Codeplex, a Tekpub free production for our friends over at Codeplex.com. In this series, I'll show you why their support for Mercurial is something you should care about, and I'll also show you the basics of using Mercurial with projects hosted up at Codeplex.com. So, back in January of 2010, Sarah Ford, then director of Codeplex, announced that Codeplex would begin offering Mercurial support in addition to their long-standing storage system, Team Foundation Server. This has been met with what can only be described as a standing ovation from Codeplex users and other Microsoft developers around the world. The Team Foundation Server is a very robust tool, but it's not built with open source project management in mind. For example, there's no built-in patching mechanism, something that is the lifeblood of any open source project. As you can see from this diagram, TFS is about one thing and one thing only: control. Control over process is something that is very important in the corporate world, even if it comes at the cost of productivity. TFS was targeted at the corporate user and has worked well for many companies. Open source development, however, tends to play by its own rules and typically thrives in environments with a little less structure. With the move to Mercurial, Codeplex is showing a lot of flexibility and is providing you, as the open source contributor or owner, a source control tool that makes code collaboration extremely simple. But first things first, what makes Mercurial different? And why should you, as the project owner or contributor, care? The quick answer is that Mercurial is a distributed source control system that is incredibly fast and is built with disconnected open teams in mind. In short, there is no central repository. Everyone has a clone of the repository on their hard drive, and, when appropriate, they merge that clone with a central repository at an agreed-upon location. For Codeplex users, this is the Codeplex Mercurial repository. Now, the reason these systems are faster is that the repository that you commit your changes to resides right on your hard drive, making the commit process, as well as branching and merging, incredibly fast and simple. Routine tasks such as browsing your commit history are now performed without any network latency, which makes for a much happier coding experience. When the project collaborators decide it's time to share their work, when a stability point is hit, or perhaps when they want to share an idea, they push their repository up to Codeplex, merging their work with the others on the project. At first, all this merging might sound a bit scary. If anyone's been through a deep merge conflict with other source control systems, well, you know it's no fun. You can easily lose a day. But Mercurial's merging algorithms are, in a word, amazing. They have been described as omniscient by some folks. Their ability to stitch disparate code files together is utterly stunning. I've witnessed it firsthand. It's great. Mercurial has a great visual tooling that many Subversion users will find immediately recognizable. It's the Tortoise client. If you're a Subversion user and are familiar with Tortoise SVN, then Tortoise HG, which is the tool I'll be showing you today, will be a breeze for you to pick up. Working with Mercurial inside of Visual Studio really couldn't be easier with the use of the Visual HG plugin, which is essentially a wrapper around Tortoise HG. I'll show you how to hook this thing up. Easy stuff. Finally, if you like what you see here and you want to know more, we have a 3-hour series here at Tekpub that covers just about everything you'd want to know about Mercurial. So let's get started using Mercurial, and of course the first thing we're going to want to do is to download the client that we're going to be using. In this case, it's Tortoise HG. Like I was saying before, it is the Tortoise client, and for Subversion users out there who have used Tortoise SVN, this will look all too familiar. You can head over to tortoisehg.bitbucket.org, or just Google Tortoise HG. You'll land up here, download the client, and off you go. The next thing is Visual HG, which is a Codeplex project. You can go to visualhg.codeplex.com, download this, and it is a, as you can see, plugin for Visual Studio, which essentially allows you to work with Tortoise HG right inside Visual Studio. So let's take Mercurial for a spin. And to do that, I have Visual Studio 2008 open here in front of me. And I'll be using ASP.NET MVC 2.0 as my test application. And I've basically just hit File, New, ASP.NET MVC 2.0 Web App. And here is the template project. So I want to add this to source control. And to do that, unfortunately, I need to leave Visual Studio and execute this using the Explorer shell. So what I'm going to do is right-click and go down to Open Folder in Windows Explorer. This is going to open up Explorer. You can see here's my project. And I don't want to have my repository in here. Obviously, I want to go back up one. This is a solution directory, and this is where I want the repository to be kept, because if I add any projects, they will be added here. I want to make sure everything is protected under source control, and so you have to have your repository at the root of your project in order for it to track other things. Okay, well, to do that, I need to go one level up. I'm going to use the tooling now, Tortoise HG, which I've installed. This is version 1, using Mercurial version 1.5. Anyway, I'll right-click here. You can see we have Tortoise HG installed. The first thing I'm going to do is say Create Repository here. And here is our init dialog. I'll just say Create, done, all set. So if I come in here, you can see we have a new directory and a new file. This is .hg. This is our actual repository that will be storing all of our content. All of our commits and everything go in here. Then we have our hgignore file, which is quite handy. It would be the first thing I'm going to fill out here. This is going to be all the files that Mercurial is not going to track. And the good rule of thumb here is you do not want to track anything that a human did not create. But I'm just going to go with this, save it, close it. All right, so we're good to go with that. What I want to do now is I want to commit this stuff to source. Okay, well, let's get started. I'm going to hop back out here to the shell, right-click, hgcommit. Up pops a dialog, and the first thing it's going to tell you is, I don't know what all these files are. Question marks. And if you're wondering, I don't know what a question mark means, does it mean it's asking me a question? Well, the cool thing you can do is drop open this little box down here. This is a filter for this area right here, and it says, well, question mark is unknown. It's not tracked. So in order to get Mercurial to track anything, you have to be explicit about it. You have to say, yes, I want you to track it. Since we have hgignore in place, we can simply tell it to track everything that's here. Good to go. Now what we can do is we can say this is our initial commit, and we can leave it just like that. Now this is normally a two-step process, but the tooling makes this easy. Now what we're supposed to do initially is say, add these files, track them please, and then you want to commit the changes. But you can do it all at once if you like, and it will be nice to you and prompt you and say, do you really want to add all these files? You say yes, and then boom, it's just that fast. That is why people love Mercurial. It is fast, fast, fast. Yeah, it's fast because it's local, which is great. Okay, well, now that we've done that, let's do something a little bit more interesting. Let's go take a look at what our repo essentially looks like. And to do that, we're going to open up Tortoise HG, and then we're going to come down over here, and we are going to go to the Repository Explorer. We're going to open this up, and you can see we have an initial commit. And if we come down here, we can take a look at all the things that are going on. You can see that if we click on this stuff, you can take a look at a diff on the right side. None of this existed. This is a plain old diff. All of this text was added to this file, and this file itself was added. And right here is what's called the tip of our repository. So great. We're good to go. We got our first commit in, and we're ready to rock. Our new MVC application is happily checked into source control, and everything is committed, and we are ready to start working. However, if we take a look at the way things stand here, we have absolutely no idea that we are using any kind of source control, so let's change that. I've installed Visual HG, and what I want to do now is I want to turn it on. So to do that, I go up to Tools, and I go down to Options. And inside here under the Source Control tab is Plugin Selection. Now if you don't see all these, make sure you come down here to Show All Settings in the checkbox. Make sure it's checked. So we're going to go up here to Plugin Selection, and when I drop this down, there's Visual HG, and we're going to hit OK, and boom, everything refreshes in our site and tells us the status of the files. Now unfortunately there's a teeny little bug with Visual HG where if you hover over a file, it says pending add. Well, it's already been added. We can tell by the green check mark. Okay, so let's do some work. What I want to do now is I want to come in here and make a change to a file and show you a commit process using the Visual HG plugin. So it's telling us to put some content here, and let's do that. Seems like a pretty good message to me. Okay, well notice the icon has changed on save, and so now what we have is a pending change. So if I come up here and I right click, we now that I've turned this thing on, and let's move this window up. And if I right click here, we can come down here, and now we have a whole bunch of new icons in here, and I'll go through each one of these in just a second. But I can come up here to HG commit, and up pops a window that we have seen before. This is the commit window from Tortoise HG. So inside here, if we take a look at what's happening, it's giving us an M next to this file name. And if we pop this thing open to see what M means, it means modified. It's great. So the cool thing is, if we click on this, you can see a diff of exactly what we've done on the right side here. And I think that's pretty handy. So now what we want to do is we want to commit this in. Notice our committer name is set up here for us because it's picked that up out of the repository settings. So I'm going to say added some text to about view. Great. And then to commit it, boom, commit, done. So there it is, simple commit process. One of the most fascinating aspects about Mercurial is the working directory, the code that you're working on under source control. And the way Mercurial acts like a bit of a time machine and allows you to bounce around between commits and revisions. To see what I mean, consider this. Let's go and we will open up our history window using HG History through our plugin, Visual HG. Notice we have 3 commits. And right now we are sitting on the tip, which is this commit right here. And with other source control systems, it is possible to go back and see the changes you've made over time and apply those changes, bring it down to a given file. With Mercurial, since you're working locally and it's faster than fast, you can actually just swap out everything inside the directory with a real simple command. And to see this in action, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click here and execute the command. It's called update. And what that's going to do is it's going to take out absolutely everything in the directory and turn back time. So you can see this visually. It's been bolded. This little bulb right here has gotten a bit bigger, but if we close this now, you can see it's telling us to reload, and if we do, we are put back in time to here, and everything's back in its original state. This feature of the working directory and essentially fire hosing its contents is core to working with these distributed systems. Because one of the things that you can do is you can start branching your work, going sideways if you will, layering in features over time, and building out a very interesting roadmap of where you've been and what you've done. Many developers, when working with distributed systems like Mercurial, prefer to only work inside of a branch and merge their work in to the default branch, the main one, only when it's good and ready and stable. And that way they can keep bugs out. They can always have a stable place from which to give a demo or which to share their work. So I'm going to show you that workflow right now. And what I'm going to do is really quickly bring up the history window one more time. And so we're going to take a look at that and throw some syntax at you, some vernacular if you will. Right now our head, you can think of it like a tape recorder head, is right on our initial commit. You can tell once again because it's bolded and you can see it's sort of an enlarged little dot there. What I want to do is I want to move the head back up to the tip. The tip is the farthest point in time that our repository is at. So once again, to do that, I'm going to right click, update, yes, thank you, done. So now if I come back over here into our page, or into our solution, we have now updated back to where we were, which is exciting. Okay, well now I want to start doing some work on the home page, the index view, if you will. So I'm going to come down here, and I love this message that says, oh, hello and welcome to ASP.NET MVC, but it's not terribly helpful. What I'd actually like to do is to put in some very meaningful lorem ipsum as a placeholder for right now. So I'm going to hit save. Now since I've started working here on this home page, I don't really want to have these incremental saves making their way into my stable default branch. You might be saying, what do you mean you stable default branch? Do you have one of those? And by default, yes. You're always working inside of a branch inside of Mercurial. You know this because this little green box tells you you're working on the default branch. That's just the main branch. You start off with only one, but it does not have to stay that way. What I want to do right now is I'm going to commit this change that I just made, and in doing so I'm going to create a brand new branch. So I'm going to right click here, and then I'm going to go up to the commit window now. Right click, hit commit, and inside here I'm going to say beginning work on home page. Now instead of just hitting commit right now, I'm going to click this little button. It tells me I'm on the default branch, and up here it's going to say I want to open a brand new branch, and I'm just going to call it home page. And we'll leave it at that. We'll say OK. And now when we hit commit, saying, do you want to create a new branch? I sure do. Hit yes. OK. So now I've committed our changes to the new home branch. What I'm going to do is add a little bit more text here. I'm going to pause and I'll come right back. Okay, lots of Latin in there, so we can see that we've changed the page one more time. So now I'm going to go and commit my changes one more time in here, and I will say finished up the home page text. Great. Now, by reviewing this commit screen, you can see we're still on the home page branch, and you can see the changes right over here in our diff. All's good. I'm going to commit. Awesome. Okay, well now if we take a look at our history window, once again, right-click, open up history. Inside of here, you can see, now we have 2 green boxes. We have 2 branches. That's all well and good. Let's bring them back together. So to do this now, to meld in our changes of our finished work, what I need to do is to come over here and I got to move our head back down to our default branch. So I'm just going to say update. Boom. So now we've moved down there. You cannot be merging a branch where the head is sitting, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say merge with, and it's going to pop up in the merge dialog. We're saying the merge target, homepage, merging with default. Boom. Now, a lot of people will look at this and say, this is kind of scary, merging these branches. From where I come from, my source control system, merging is a pain, branching is a pain. What I'm hopefully showing you that if you're doing all this locally with a system like Mercurial that has crazy, insane algorithms for merging files together, it becomes easy. So easy that you begin to start branching per feature. A lot of people branch when an issue comes in. They'll fix an issue. And you might be thinking, why would they do that? Well, I'm going to tell you why in just a second. So to complete a merge, you have to actually commit the change. And so I'll just say merge homepage work to default. And when we hit commit, everything is good. And this is updated. All is happy. Well, now let's go take a look at our history. And what this is going to show is a very interesting graphic. You can see how our work has progressed over time, that we started beginning work on the home page 2 minutes ago. We finished it up about 90 seconds ago, and we're continuing on. The interesting thing about this is if you start branching by feature, this turns into a very interesting roadmap over time. And you can also set this UI up here to have different branch colors for different developers. And if you're a manager, seeing this kind of roadmap over time is just awesome. Anyway, that is one of the main things that people love about Mercurial is this branching workflow. Well, I've worked my application to a point where I think it's ready to see the light of day, so I'm going to send it up to Codeplex here so I can get some collaborators to help me build it out. So here I am at codeplex.com, and I'm logged in as myself, Rob Connery, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a project here, and to do that it's pretty darn simple. Just click on the Create Project link there, and I'm going to give it a title, and I'll call it Cat Bus. Why not? And this will be the Cat Bus project, and then I get to choose my source control, and I have 2 choices, Mercurial or Team Foundation Server. So I'm going to choose Mercurial, and this will be the demo for HG and Codeplex. That's it. So you hit next, and then we get to step 2. We have to agree to this stuff, fill in some security. I won't bore you with this. I'll pause for a second. Ready. Well, here we are. We've created our project, and the neat thing about working with Codeplex is the minute you create your project, it is not yet published. And I kind of like that feature. It allows you to kind of put your bits in order, fill out the wiki, set up any kind of issue tracking preferences you like. In this case, I'm just going to go straight to it so I can show you what this looks like. And straight away, we're met with a message at the very, very top that says you've got 30 days left. And that's great. Well, so I have some things I need to do here first, and one of the things I need to do is, of course, push my source code up. And if I come over here to the source code tab, well, there's no commits, there's nothing in here. So what I need to do is click on this link, Mercurial, and up pops a little box that says, well, here's your clone URL. This is where you get to push to and clone from and log in using your regular credentials. So I'm just going to copy this little link right here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here to my directory. I'm going to open up Tortoise HG, and then I'm going to go click on Synchronize. Now I can do this from inside of Visual Studio as well, but I'm just going to do it right here. Now I have a couple choices. Now the first thing I can do is I can just literally paste this right in here. But that's going to be annoying if I have to do it every single time. So let's actually make this a bit more automatic. I'm going to go to Configure, and this is going to open up the repository settings dialog. And so what I want to do right now is add in a remote repository path. So I'm on the synchronized section right here, remote repository path. I'm going to add this, And if I come over here, first thing it wants to ask me is what is the alias? So let's call this Codeplex. And then for the URL, we'll back this out, paste this in, and it's kind of cool. This dialog parses out the values. And then down below here, I'm going to enter my login information. There we go. And then I'm going to hit OK. Apply. OK. So now I am just about ready to go. Here I have a selection in my drop-down, and I am going to push, sending this information over HTTPS up to Codeplex. I'm going to pause while this happens. All right, well, great. That took all of about 25 seconds or so to push my entire MVC project up, which is exciting. So now if I come over here, back to my source tab, what I can do is refresh this. And we should see, there we go, our entire source history. Now notice this is a bit different than the way things work with Subversion or TFS. I have commits already. And I also have branches in here as well. It's because my entire source history was pushed. In fact, when people clone this, they also bring down your entire source history. And when they push back up, their source history meshes with yours. It's pretty interesting the way this all works. Okay, well, speaking of cloning and meshing and so on, one of the interesting things about Codeplex is it allows you to create forks, additional repositories that are mirror duplicates that allow side-by-side work. Let's take a look at that. Well, hopefully your open source project is gaining some attention and some traction, and if it is, likely you will have users that want to help you fix issues and maybe add features. And typically what that would mean is they'll be sending you patches, little text diff files that you can apply to your current code base. Well, as you can imagine, the more popular your project gets, the more patches you'll probably get, the more tedious this process becomes. It becomes a pretty manual thing to go and apply and review all those patches. And the good news is Mercurial makes this really, really easy with the concept of forking, which is creating a tandem repository that someone can work in and that you can just merge with yours. Now again, this might sound crazy to people that come from a system like Subversion or TFS, where such a thing really just isn't possible, merging another repository. In Mercurial, it's quite easy. Also, I should mention that in the open source arena, fork tends to be a dirty word. However, take it in light of these distributed systems, fork is actually a good word. You want people to fork your repository, because when they do, they will be working on things that you eventually can merge back in. So let's take a look at how that's going to work. What I've done is I have a second account up here at Codeplex. Probably shouldn't be able to do this, but I did. I am Rob Connery 2, and what I'm going to do is I am going to help out Rob Connery proper and add in localization, because every project should have localization, don't you think? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to the CatBus project, and to do that I have a handy URL. You can go directly to the URL, catbus.codeplex.com. Great. So it's still unpublished, and I want to come in and add in localization, and Rob Connery proper has said, well, look, thanks for your help. I don't really want to give you commit rights to the repository just yet. Why don't you go ahead and fork and add in your changes? All right, I can sure do that. So what I'm going to do is I'll go over to source code, and I'm going to create a fork of this project. I'll give it a name, and we'll just call it localization, and then adding in I18N support. Why not? We just save it. What's happening now is a mirror copy of the repository is being created for me and segregated to this URL right here. All right, well, to get at this fork, as you can imagine, all I got to do is copy this. Now let's go back down to our hard drive. Pretend I'm working on the Rob Connery 2 hard drive. What I'm going to do is create a directory here. We'll just call it fork for clarity. And then right-click here, and instead of going to create repository, that's not what I want to do. I want to clone an existing one. Now, this may seem a little strange. I'll walk you through this in just a second. But what I want to do is I want to pull down the repository I have up on Codeplex. I'll pull it down here locally so I can actually do some work. So I'll paste that in. I'll hit clone. And what that's going to do is it's going to reach out to Codeplex. It's going to grab that code and drop it in here. That was pretty quick, wasn't it? You have the entire application right here. In fact, if I come in here to the Repository Explorer, Tortoise HG, Repository Explorer, and I take a look at this, well, you can see we have the exact same history, which is kind of interesting. So one thing I'm going to do here, just so I can differentiate on the timeline, is I'm going to right-click here and go to Tortoise HG near the bottom. Sorry, I can't show you this. I'm going to Repository Settings. It's right near the bottom of the menu there. And inside here on Commit, I'm going to change my name just for this repository. Inside, I'll put here Joe Blow. This way. Hit OK. Great. All right. So now what I want to do, come in here, we'll do some work. Let's add some localization in. I'll go to the home controller, and, well, I'm not going to do the full thing, of course. And there we go. Added in some localization in the form of a French comment, because every application should speak some form of French, don't you think? OK. Now I can go to commit, and you can see here's my name, Joe Blow, set properly, even though KOE, fat fingers, small keyboard. So added in some French love. There we go. Sounds a little strange. That's okay. Commit the change. Great. So now that it's committed, I'm ready to synchronize this back up. So to show you how that works, let's pull this up a little bit so you can see the command. I'm going to right-click, synchronize. Now I'm going to push this back up to my public branch. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, I don't quite understand. You have a repository here, branches up there. What exactly is happening? And I mentioned I would explain this to you. So here's the deal. Codeplex is basically a public location for people to push and pull from. The actual repository you work on is on your local hard drive. So you can imagine that if you had a room with 10 developers and each of you had to synchronize with each other in order to keep current, well, that would be kind of crazy, because you'd be shouting across each other saying, pull from me, no pull from me, no pull from me, push to me, pull. You can see how that goes. So what you really need is a centralized location that you all agree that you're going to push to and pull from. So that's what Codeplex is. It is your central repository. So when you create a fork of that, you can't really work on the Codeplex repository unless you're Jonathan Wanagle and you're sitting there. You have access to the Codeplex servers. Instead, what you need to do is you need to clone your branch down and then push back up to it. Once you are done with that, then you can merge it with the proper and primary branch. Okay, let's see how that works. I'm going to come back over here into the synchronize dialog, and we're going to synchronize back up to Codeplex. Inside of here, you want to make sure you're going to check off force, pull, or push, just in case there's any weird branch craziness up there. I'm going to push back up. This is one of the benefits of having a clone. When you clone down, it remembers where it came from. So when you go into the push dialog, this automatically shows up here for you, and you just hit push. And off it goes. You can see how fast this goes. It's going to ask you to log in, and I will do that. I'm going to log. All right, logged in. Boom, up it went. All right, well, that's pretty handy. Great. So now what do? Well, let's go back over to Codeplex, and I'm going to go into my Rob Connery 2. Yep, here I am. So now what I can do, I've pushed everything up, is I can send what's called a pull request, meaning that Codeplex can handle communication with the primary project manager, which is just Rob Connery, and it will send him a message to actually pull from this fork. So to do that, I'm going to crack open this dialog, and I'm going to say added in Vive la France. There we go. All right, sending that off to Rob. And what he's going to get is an email. Let's go check his email real quick. And I'll open up my other browser over here. There we go. Hey, there it is. Notifications. That's from Codeplex. Notifications at codeplex.com. Pull request for CatBus. Pretty neat. So if I look down through here, it says, hey, someone added in support for France. To pull the changes, it gives you exact explicit directions right here. Okay. Well, great. So now what I can do is I can actually go back over to Codeplex into the CatBus project. And if I go into the forks area, now remember, this is me as Rob Connery, the project owner. I can see someone has cloned it. That's pretty neat, and I can see exactly what it is they're up to. And now I got a pull request, and I can take a look at it. Added support for France. Okay, well, so let's do that. Let's pull it down. Now, you might be thinking, if you're a GitHub user, that if I click on this link right here, apply pull request, that it's actually going to merge those changes in. That's not how it works at Codeplex. I'll show you that in just a second. What I need to do is I actually need to pull from this fork. So I'm going to hit copy here. I'm going to go back down to my hard drive. So I'm going to pop back out of here, go to MVC Application 1, which is the primary project of Rob Connery. And inside of here, I am simply going to open up Tortoise HG, and I'm going to go to Synchronize, open up the Synchronize window because I want to synchronize with this fork. I'm going to pop that address in, and I'm going to hit Pull. And this time I'm going to turn off the force, because if there's a problem coming in, I don't really want to introduce problems into my repository. If there's a problem, it's going to let me know. So I'll hit pull, and it's going to pull down those changes. And good, it added a change set in. All right, well, that's exciting. Now, if you're used to working with Subversion, then you're probably used to the changes coming in and updating your code, and you have to figure out exactly what happened. That's not the way Mercurial works. I'll show you what I mean. If you right-click here, Tortoise HD, we go into the Explorer now, and here is the new commit. Added in some French love. Well, that's exciting. And if we look down here, we can see that our head is one step back. So the tip is up here, but our head is still here. It means our working directory is untouched, which is great because this means no merge conflicts can happen this way. It's just telling us our repository has moved forward. We are still working back in time. However, if we want to review what's gone on up here before we ever got to it, we can take a look right here, right through the Repository Explorer, and take a look at the diff. All the files changed will be right here. The diffs for each will be right here. And there's no merging we need to do. There's no patch application we need to do. If we like it, all we need to do is right-click here, and as I showed before, update. Update, done. All the changes are merged in. We're good to go. Now, if we don't like this for some reason, we can simply go and roll back those changes. And we can do that, and I'll show you that really quickly, by right-clicking over here, Tortoise HD, go all the way down to this weirdly named menu item called Recovery, and hit roll back. And what this is going to do, I'll just do it really quickly. What this is going to do is it's going to, and I'll refresh this, remove that last commit and push us back one. So that's pretty cool stuff. Unfortunately for us, if you roll back a pull, which we just did, it's gone. There's nothing we can do to recover it. So what I'm going to do is, since I want to kind of take this all the way through, I'm going to right-click here and reapply that. Searching for changes, added it in. Good news. All right, so let's go back in here to our repository. We're going to take a look in the Explorer, and we are going to come over here, hit update. Now everything is applied, which is great. And let's just discard those changes. Cool. Okay, so now that's done. Now what I want to do is push this back up to Codeplex. Whoops, I'm going to drop this down. There's my main path to the main project. I'm going to push this back up. I'm going to say push, off it goes. Now this dialog's a little bit weird. It doesn't give you any confirmation, but once that little blue Cylon eyeball thing stops going back and forth, you know it's done. So we can go back over here. Here we are back at the main CatBus project. I'm going to go over not to the issue tracker, but to source code. And I'm going to go to see recent check-ins, and there it is. Boom, added in. Okay, and look, the cool thing is it remembers the name, Joe Blow. So if we come in here, I hadn't really showed this yet, you can fully browse this, which is kind of cool. So we'll come in here, take a look at the controllers, home controller. We can see some of Joe Blow's work. One of the things I really like about this is look at the way this looks. They've managed to make this layout look almost exactly like Visual Studio, which is kind of cool. And we can see the work that's been done. So that brings us to the end of this free episode of Working with Mercurial and Codeplex. And if you'd like to know more, we have over 3 hours of Working with Mercurial available to you up at Tekpub. Just drop on by, pick it up, or you can watch it as part of a monthly or yearly subscription. Once again, thanks for watching. My name is Rob Connery, and have a good day.